What is going on, everybody? Louis Vuitton Don here, bringing you guys some more gameplay. This time, we're hopping into a game where I'm playing Vox with LeVar Ball, the best support in NA, and we're playing against Starting All Over, who is I main Saw, on lane Reza, and Evol, the second best support in NA, and he's playing Weapon Sky. So, in this video, I'm going to be going over all of the changes in 2.10 and everything involved in them. But just to preface this video, I wouldn't take the gameplay that incredibly serious because I knew that I was going to get starting before this game, so he kind of trolled and banned Saw, my one trick, and he decided to pick lane Reza. So, you know, it's not ideal, and we win pretty decisively, but I mean, both of these guys are gods in their own right. So anyway, the main point of this video is to show some Lorelei footage that I have near the end, near the middle of it, and I play her as CP and I also play her as weapon. And during the course of this, I'm not really going to be talking about the gameplay, I'm just going to be going over the 2.10 patch notes. So, starting right off the bat with the meta changes. As far as 2.10 meta, not a whole lot of changes. The only changes are the lead minion damage to turrets was increased, as well as the tank minion and the range minion. So I'm pretty sure that's all the minions, but basically all the minions are going to be doing more damage to turrets, which is a nice change. I think that, you know, they should push a little bit on their own right. So hopefully that'll change things up a little bit in 2.10. But just starting alphabetically with the heroes. Alpha, her termination protocol cooldown was increased. So Alpha is a monster in her own right. She is an extremely good jungler this patch. So the termination protocol increase of that should tone her down a little bit of a nerf there, but hopefully that should bring her in line with some other heroes. Moving down, Arden. Julia's gift, the missing life that was healed is reduced. So right now Arden, I think he heals something like 1.5% off of all the damage that he takes. So it made him like the tankiest support in the game. So that's going to be reduced a little bit. And also I forgot to say, I'm really sorry, but the sound quality of this video isn't going to be as good as it usually is. I don't have access to my mic that I normally use, so I'm just recording this on my phone. And I actually had to redo this because the sound quality was so poor the first time. But I just want to get these notes out to you as fast as possible so that you guys can start to learn about 2.10 and maybe, you know, just sort of theorize about possible strats and things to do. So moving down the list, we have Baron. His movement speed was increased, which is always a change that's welcome for Baron. He's like the slowest hero in the game other than Finn, so a little bit of a buff towards him. He also has another series of buffs. His Porcupine Mortars, the cooldown on his A ability, that's what Porcupine Mortars is. It's reduced from 5 seconds at all levels to 5, and then going down by 1.5 at each level, or going down by half a second at each level. So 5, 4.5, 4, 3.5, 2.5, which is actually a bug fix. And the energy cost to use his A was also reduced. Some other changes for him are jump jets. Crystal power no longer increases the jump range, which was sort of an awkward thing that you had to do in order to actually jump to his full range. You would just slide the minimap, which I don't think anyone was actually doing. And his crystal power also decreases the delay before Baron's jump next patch. So his weapon power normally only did that, but now CP will as well. And Blackfeather. Of course, Blackfeather. He's one of the best heroes this patch. Even after all of the hot fixes, he's still incredibly dominant as built weapon power in the lane. So his only real counter this patch is Rona, so hopefully that'll tone him down a little bit. But his Feint of Heart, the cooldown was increased on it. His On Point, the barrier strength was reduced. And his Rose Offensive, the cooldown was increased and the energy cost was increased. So now you have to be smarter about using his abilities, and it's going to be a little bit tougher. So should bring him in line with other weapon power carries. I think the best weapon power carries this patch, other than Blackfeather. Well, actually, I think Blackfeather's top 3, but I think the best ones this patch, and I think that they were a little bit too dominant, were Saw, Kestrel, and Blackfeather. So they all have their fair share of changes, and we'll be getting to them soon. But now Blackfeathers are going to have to be a lot smarter about when they use their Faint of Heart, because this patch, what most Blackfeathers did was simply use their Faint of Heart to initiate, and because the cooldown was so low, they could easily just try to survive a few more seconds, and then, you know, once the target was low enough, they would just execute him. But given all the gap closers that Blackfeather already has, I don't think that this was really fair. So now Blackfeathers are probably going to have to be saving this specifically, you know, just for executes. And I think that they might also start overdriving their C abilities because of the nerfs to the Rose offensive. With the increased cooldown, you're maybe going to want to be maxing it to reduce that cooldown. And Faint of Heart, you know, it might not be worth taking the overdrive anymore. So definitely some good changes to Blackfeather, and I hope it'll bring them in line with other weapon power carries, like I said. Going down alphabetically, Catherine. Merciless Pursuit, the energy cost was reduced on it, so she'll be able to use that a little bit more frequently. Good news for every support main out there. For Celeste, Celeste needed a little bit of love. None of the mages were that incredibly impactful this patch. It was a little difficult to lane mages into a lot of heroes, so reducing that slightly. Flicker, her Fairy Dust, I'm actually not sure what that is. That might be her A? No, I think that's her B ability. I'm actually not sure. You guys can correct me on that in the comments, but her cooldown was reduced on it, so whatever it is, you're going to be able to use it more frequently, so have fun with that, Flicker mains, all one of you. And Mooncloak, that is her ult, that I know. The stealth duration was increased on that, which I like, because it's already pretty long, but not long enough to do anything super crazy with, so I like that they increased that slightly. Glaive, G's. G's is in letters of the alphabet. Glaive, his Twisted Stroke, his crit chance is increased, and his energy cost is also decreased for his Twisted Stroke. Those are two really good buffs. Glaive has fallen out a little bit of the meta. You don't see him in the lane much anymore, and also not much in the jungle, mostly due to the large amount of weapon power carries being dominant in lane, and it's difficult to play CP Glaive. So both those changes will benefit a lot. Will benefit him a lot. Glaive's always an energy-hungry hero, so we're probably going to be seeing more of him in the future. Hopefully in the lane again, even though I don't play lane Glaive, but he's a fun hero regardless. And his Blood Song, his C ability, the lifesteal that he gets per stack is now increased. So another nice buff, good for weapon and CP. So Glaive should start to make his way back onto the fold again. Grumpjaw, this man has a lot of changes. Grumpjaw, you used to see him played CP in the jungle, and one of my favorite things was playing him as a captain, but that's pretty much fallen completely out of the meta. And he's like one of the least picked heroes in the game, next to Flicker. So we've got a nice series of buffs coming for Grumpjaw. First of all, his Living Armor, his perk ability, the time between his stack fall off, like when his Living Armor, you know, when he would build stacks, basic attacking, and he also builds them over time during like a set duration. I think it's a couple of seconds. Now that the time for them to fall off is increased, from 0.7 seconds to 1 second. So he normally loses a stack whenever he's basic attacked, or whenever he takes damage from like a continuous ability, but at most he could lose 1 every 0.7 seconds. Now it's 1 every 1 second, which is actually, first of all, that first blow was nice. Through the wall, that was sweaty. But sorry, back to the notes, which is actually a nice buff, because now his stacks are going to fall off, like, let's see, I think he has 6 stacks, might be 5. So they're going to fall off, like, if it's 6 stacks, 1.8 seconds slower than they normally would if he was being attacked continuously. I hope my math is right on that. And his stack charge time was decreased. So the time that it takes him to build stacks just passively was decreased. So he's definitely going to be a lot tankier just with those buffs. His Grumpy, his A ability, his damage per stack was increased, and the crystal ratio per stack was increased, which is huge, because now that his stacks take longer to fall off, he's going to have them up more frequently, and his Grumpy does more damage when he has full stacks. The more stacks he has, the more damage it does. So he's going to be a lot tankier, and he's also going to do a lot more damage because his damage per stack was increased, and the CP ratio per stack was also increased. So I've played and I've seen a lot of Grumpjaw after these changes, and he's a menace. I mean, if you have full stacks, you can play him as a support, go up to lane, an enemy hero, and it just melts. So we're going to be seeing a lot more Grumpjaw, both as a support and as a CP jungler this patch. Maybe even a laner. I don't know how good he is yet. Idris, moving down the list. Her Shroud Step, the cooldown decreased on it slightly, which always a good buff for her. She's already incredibly mobile, but we didn't see that much weapon Idris. She's kind of this patch. So cooldown decreased on that, and her Shimmer Strike, her C ability, this is a big one. It now cleanses movement impairing effects upon activation. So if she's slowed in any way after using that ability, she's going to be completely normal again, which is, that's pretty huge for her. It also removes Churnwalker Chain upon use, which that's sort of a buff, quote unquote, that they're adding to a decent amount of heroes, because, Grumpjaw's a brand new hero, so some people will be able to remove the stacks with some sort of ability. Also Lavar, OP Fountain there. Kestrel. Kestrel was completely changed. So her Glimmer Shots, the impact damage is decreased from her A ability, but the impact damage now has armor piercing. And before you say that that's OP, throwback to Kestrel, I don't know what patch, but she was a menace when she had piercing back in her kit. But now her arrows do the same damage as her basic attacks. They no longer do, I think it's 130%. So now Kestrel sort of has to choose between either continuing to basic attack an enemy with her, with her basic attacks, with her basic attacks, their arrows too, or choosing to use her Glimmer Shot and have more pierce on them, which will be effective against tanks, especially, people with high armor. Her active camo, the cooldown was also increased on it. So with Kestrel, you could, when you build her weapon power, you could toss in an arrow, and it lowers the cooldown on her active camo by 2 seconds, so she can basically spam that. So that won't be nearly as doable anymore. But the energy cost is also decreased for active camo, which, that's always a nice buff. As far as Kroll, health reduced slightly. That's all I have on him. But yeah, Kroll, he's pretty good. He's better than most junglers this patch, and he's incredibly tanky, just all on its own. So health reduced slightly. As far as Reza goes, her Nether Form Detonator gets a slight buff. It now cleanses movement impairing effects upon activation, just like Idris's Shroud Step. So a nice buff to Idris that'll be helpful for when she's chasing or going in. She can no longer be slowed. Saw. This one pains me to say it. I did not want to get to this part of the video, but unfortunately, we are nerfing the one trick of Aquemini. I know, I helped test and balance this, so gotta support the changes, gotta hype them up, but I am sad that we nerfed Saw. His armor and shield have been reduced, so he's going to be easier to kill late game, and his weapon power has also been reduced. So I can hear everyone applauding and clapping and praising the devs and the balancing gods for no longer having to play into some cancer solo queuer who just insta-lock Saw every game, but I'm crying on the inside, but I'll try to make it through the next patch. Samuel, moving on, we gotta move on from that quickly. Samuel, his Malice and Verdict, energy cost decreased, so showing a little bit of love for Samuel. Guy was always energy hungry, even with his perk, so Corrupted Genius, it gave him energy and health back, but hopefully that should bring him back a little bit into the meta. Skye, her forward barrage, the damage was increased on it, and the energy cost was decreased. So a nice series of buffs for Skye. We maybe over-nerfed her just a tiny bit these past couple of patches. She's been historically a little bit OP, but it was difficult to hard carry with a Skye anymore, so with the increase to her forward barrage, that should be a little bit more doable. And she also won't be as energy hungry because the energy cost was decreased. Scarf, health increased. So Scarf, even after the hotfix buffs, he wasn't that amazing, but he should be a little bit tankier, and I've also got some changes to items coming up, and basically mages were buffed, excuse me, because of all of the changes to CP items and the buffs to them, which I will get to. But health increased on Scarf. We got a nice team fight setting up here. We're pushing in, but back to the notes. Gotta focus on this. Pedal, trampoline, weapon amp reduced, crystal amp reduced. So lane Pedal, I don't know if we intended to have her played in the lane with her weapon power. She was a little bit OP in some situations, so slightly lowering down the nerf, or the amp from her trampoline in both weapon and CP. Rhyme. Of course, Rhyme. We've got to talk about Rhyme. Everyone's been waiting for this part of the R's because Rhyme he's broken this patch, I'm not gonna lie. So his perk, Frostguard, crystal ratio on the auto attack was reduced. So no longer will his auto attacks melt, but the damage to fortified life was increased. So before you cry OP, the reason that was done was because if you're nerfing his damage abilities, then excuse me, I just lost my spot. Yeah, if you're nerfing his damage abilities, then it's also nerfing the amount of fortified health that he can get. So he needs something to bump him up to make him be, somewhat playable still. But his Winter Spire, here are the big changes. Damage on the first Spire reduced. Damage on the second Spire reduced. Crystal ratio on the first Spire reduced, and crystal ratio on the second Spire reduced. So Rhyme should not be a hero that should be able to 1v3 every single hero in the game, because he's tanky as hell right now, and he also does insane burst damage, which you cannot have on a hero. So these changes should bring him back down a little bit and hopefully make Rhyme more of a niche pick, because that's his spot and that's where he belongs, is as a counter to triple melees. But right now you could first pick him and be totally fine. So hopefully this will bring Rhyme, he'll still be a very good hero, but he's going to be tanky but not melt and burst down teams. Also, his range was increased on his weapon, on his Winter Spire, so now he should be able to do slightly better against range heroes and whatnot. But yeah, it's mostly a pretty significant buff for Rhyme, and I'm going to try to get through these rests pretty quickly. But Ringo, his Twirling Silver, the energy cost decreased on it, which I'm always a fan of. I love playing Ringo, going to be able to play him more. Gwen, Buckshot, crystal ratio increased, cooldown decreased. So both of those, nice for CP Gwen, nice for weapon Gwen as well. Skedaddle, this is a huge one, honestly. It now blocks displacements. So fin hooks, glaive, afterburns, anything that would move you in any way, it now blocks that, which is, that's a little OP, that's pretty good. And the cooldown was also reduced on that. So Gwen, I think, will make her way back into the meta. She's supposed to be played as a counter to CP mages, so hopefully these buffs will allow her to take that place in the meta again, allow her to find her niche. Moving on to items, Aegis, duration increased. Atlas Pauldron, armor increased, which I'm a fan of. Atlas Pauldron, it made you a little bit squishy if you choose to get it over Metal Jacket, so I'm a fan of that. Aftershock, damage reduced. With the changes to increased health as of 2.9, Aftershock was a little bit too good of an item on heroes, especially like Reza, so damage reduced on that. Breaking Point, damage required per stack increased. So in order to maintain your stacks as a weapon power hero, you're going to have to do more damage. Clockwork, energy recharge increased. Energy increased. So 2 overall buffs, you know, you're going to be able to get your CP, you're going to be able to get your, what's it called? Your energy more frequently, and it also just gives you more, so that's good. Crucible, duration increased and health increased. Dragonheart, health decreased. Echo, base cooldown decreased. Echo multiplier increased. And it also has energy recharge increased and energy increased. So pretty much where there was any ability that gave, any item, that gave you energy, the recharge is going to be increased on it, and the overall energy is also going to be increased on it. But the base cooldown being decreased in the multiplier, that, I mean, Viziox can figure out the math on that one, but yeah, a little bit of a tweak there. Energy battery, you already know, energy recharge increased, bonus energy increased. So yeah, Eve of Harvest, energy recharge was increased, and the energy was increased. I'm getting sick of saying that. Frostburn, price decreased, which is really nice for Sky, really nice for a lot of heroes. It was a little bit too expensive, so that's a nice change. Halcyon Chargers, you already know, energy. Light Shield, sell price increase, it's only 50, which is kind of dumb, so now it's a little bit higher. Light Armor, same thing. Piercing Shard, shield pierce increased. Reflex Block, duration increased, so every single item that is a reflex block is going to last slightly, it's going to last slightly longer now. Tornado Trigger, bonus crit damage reduced. Little bit of a nerf there to weapon power carries. Spellfire, here's a big one. Passive burn damage changed from just 100% of crystal power over 4 seconds. It didn't give any increase in crystal power. Now it does 15 to 50, depending on level 1 to 12, plus 100% of crystal power. So it now gives a slight CP buff, which is a good. That's really good for Spellfire. That'll be comparable with, I think, every other CP item now. And Void Battery, energy. You guys already know. I guess I can go over bugs real quick. Probably not a huge issue. Dragon's Eye stack now showing Spectator. You guys don't need to know that. Fixed an issue with Frostburn, but nothing huge there. So now we dive into the main part of the video, the part that most of you guys have skipped to. So Lorelei, there she is. She's a mermaid. How awesome is that? She's a backline support, and she's really good at zone control and team utility. So the utility that she provides is she gives speed buffs to her allies when they're in her splashdown, her B ability, and it also slows enemies. So all of her abilities leave behind pools, and her heroic perk is that whenever she's standing on a pool, basically she becomes way better. Like her basic attack crystal damage is increased. She becomes empowered when she's standing on a pool. Her fish food, her A ability, it has reduced delay before impact. Same thing for her splashdown, reduced delay. And water wall, her ultimate, it forms a much larger barrier. So as you can see right there, I use my B ability and there's a little bit of a delay. But after I use my A, my stun, you can see that clam comes up and there's almost no delay. Compared to just regular when I'm not on a pool, there is a delay. So when I'm standing on my B ability, boom, my other B ability, it comes out instantly. And then when I use my A ability while standing on the pool, there's no delay, but it does consume the pool that I'm standing on. So when I'm walking on that right now, you can see I get faster, I get stunned right there. When I'm walking on Vizzle's pool, which he's gonna throw out in a second, hopefully, I get slowed. And if he were to walk through it, he would get sped up. So, what she wants to do is use a pool and then have her allies sort of run through it, and then she can basic attack on top of the pool because she'll do more damage, and then she can stun enemy heroes at range with her A ability, and it's an AoE stun. It's an AoE stun at range, and it's a pretty massive range. I mean, that's kind of OP. Like, there are no AoE stuns in the game right now other than Celeste, which is super hard to land and really close range, and like Lance's, which isn't ranged. Vizzle's just playing the support too, so this isn't really balanced. But yeah, just going over everything again because I know it's kind of confusing. Her A ability, after 0.8 seconds, if she's not standing on a pool, after 0.8 seconds, right there, the stun comes out. If I am standing on the pool and this leaves behind a pool, then the other abilities are instant. Or basically instant. There's like a 0.2 second delay. So her C ability is the big one. What I'll imagine supports would want to do with this is use the C ability on an ally, like a carry that really wants to go in, while you're standing on a pool, because then the barrier is like 3 vanguards. It's just ridiculous. And then you can see I'm doing more damage to turret than I should because I'm standing on the pool, which empowers my basic attacks. But like I was saying, you use your C ability on an ally, and then I would echo it, just throw down another pool, and because the C ability leaves behind this pool, and I know I'm saying the word pool a lot, it's annoying me, but because it leaves it behind, you can just stand on what it left behind, echo it, and then give them another barrier, which, I mean, I think that's OP. I mean, you're going to be able to just go in forever and just basically be invulnerable while you're playing with this hero. And she also has so much lockdown potential with her stuns. Now, keep in mind, she won't do that incredibly good into enemies who are fleeing because her stuns have the delay. So she won't be able to use them on enemies walking away. Yeah, it's called Water Wall. And all of them, I mean, 1,000 barrier. That's insane for her C. All of them scale heavily with crystal power, which is why I recommend playing her in the lane. But now we're just going to be hopping into a random thing I recorded of me and Vizzle soloing down this Kraken. We've got Vizzle with the best stutter steps NA, but I just want to talk about her a little bit more and talk about her with an echo, which I think is going to be crazy. So, like I said, the barrier that it gives isn't as strong when she's not standing on a pool, but when she is, it's enormous. So, right there I let Vizzle die because I'm not a support main, and I don't care. But, I mean, I'm really excited for this hero to make it to live. I cannot wait to see what, people like Evol, Gay Vizzle, LeVar are gonna do with this support with this much zoning and this much crowd control. I mean, I'm super excited. I mean, and the barrier that the C gives, even when you're not standing on the pool, is really significant. And as you can see, there's that pool under Vizzle right now because that's what it leaves. And it gives him a much larger barrier when I'm standing on it, or when I cast my C ability when I'm standing on the pool. So, what I would recommend with Lorelei is to build a lot of cooldown, maybe Clockwork, because her A is on such a short cooldown already. You want to be spamming that, and you want to get as many pools down as possible so that your abilities will just be that much more effective. And when it comes to heroes who have empowered effects, in any case, they tend to be kind of OP if they're able to use those effects constantly. Like in the case of Samuel, like if he had his Drifting Dark up constantly, and he's constantly empowered, I mean, he'd be really good. And with Lorelei, I think it's almost possible to play around her so that you're always standing on some type of pool. So right now you can see, you know, when I use my C when I'm not on a pool, it gives that sort of barrier. There's that delay when I use my B. My ultimate drops a pool as well. And the ultimate drops the B ability, basically, which is sort of interesting. But my A ability, it leaves that smaller pool, and it doesn't slow allies, or it doesn't slow enemies or speed up allies, but it does have that stun, and I can still treat it like the larger pool, in the sense that it buffs her in every sense of the word. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you like seeing this new Lorelei gameplay. I apologize again for the sound quality. I'm just recording from my phone, but I wanted to get this to you as fast as I possibly could. It's a long video as well, but hopefully you made it all the way through. Let me know if you guys enjoyed this, and if you want to see more content like it, or if you have any suggestions, just feel free to drop an idea in the comment section, and I can make a video on it, or I can talk about it. But make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Louis Vuitton Don out.